Good morning. This is Carl Dakin, and this is the Successful Funding Show. We are here today to share knowledge with everyone who's listening or who watches the recording. And we're going to be talking about crowdfunding. And by that, this is a particular type of raising money. It's a approach or method of raising money. And in the United States, it is something that is very important because it allows non-accredited investors, those who represent 97% of the population, to participate in a public offering of an interest in a business. And because of the fact that it includes everybody, there are all these rules and regs and systems and so forth that we have to conform with. So I have with me today Jerry Fultz, who has been active in crowdfunding and has worked with different platforms and is going to share with us his experience and my own experience in working with many different crowdfunding campaigns. And hope that you all will learn something from today's program. So with that, Jerry, if you would introduce yourself, give a little bit of a background about where you're at and what you've done in crowdfunding, and then I'll line up a bunch of hardball questions for you.
Oh, good. Looking forward to that. Hey, Carl and all, great to be with you today. Excited to talk about this opportunity, especially as it relates to youth sports. Just a little bit about my own personal background in this area. My daughter was in gymnastics for a number of years, and I'm just excited about this topic today because I see how it can really begin to transform just the whole culture and the whole way that youth sports are operated and run and all of that. So pretty excited. But anyway, done a number of things, been involved in just a number of entities across my career, but most recently was part of the team that launched an equity crowdfunding platform called EquityVest. I was the COO as a part of that launch and served there for several years. We recently sold EquityVest, and I have moved on, but spent the last number of years just working on crowdfunding, everything from crowdfunding pitches to just preparation to help founders get ready to do launches, and really all things equity crowdfunding. So specifically as it relates to this call, that's probably the thing that most qualifies me to be on with you all today, and happy to talk about any and all aspects of that.
Sure. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to use as an illustration an upcoming crowdfunding campaign that I'm currently and responsible for as far as design and planning, but I am looking to Jerry to potentially join me in this endeavor. And we'll talk about the campaign a little bit more in a moment, but to step back and give a little background to everyone, crowdfunding is, in simple terms, getting a large number of money changing hand in small dollar amounts. So if you've ever passed the plate at a church, that's an offering. That's a charitable type of crowdfunding that's physically done in person while you're there. And in today's world, there's an equivalent of that for the charitable world called GoFundMe, and there's a couple dozen other platforms that help people raise money for personal needs to recover from an injury or deal with a disaster. And those are out there, and because they're charitable, it's a one-way deal. There's an expectation you're going to give money with no real expectation you're going to get anything back other than maybe a warm feeling in your heart that you've done the right thing. Then crowdfunding really came into its own back in, say, the early teens, when Kickstarter came out, and it started helping artists and musicians and other people who were bringing books and albums and so forth forward, where they could invest, as they called it, into a new product that had yet to be built. And it created a financing mechanism where an artist could go online, ask everybody for money, use that money then to make the book or make the album, and then they would ship it as a product. Now, this is what we call reward crowdfunding or product or service sales crowdfunding. And it is Indiegogo, I think, has now surpassed Kickstarter in terms of the total number of deals, but it's still an area where a business may decide that to get themselves known, to get out there in the market, they go out and do a reward style crowdfunding. Today, we're going to talk about the third, or what we call the highest, most complex form of crowdfunding, which is called equity crowdfunding or investment crowdfunding. And we're using investment in the securities definition, not the one that a lot of other people use. And in this case, you may be able to invest into a business. The business may give you back something in the form of equity, which would be an ownership position, or they may give you a promissory note, which would be like a bank loan, or you can do what is called a revenue contract, which is sharing in distributions from revenue earned through sales of the company. Those are the three primary types of equity. And then on top of that, though, you can incentivize the investor to do something by putting in what are called perks or other incentives or bonuses or other things that are there. And these are all important because you want a package that's going to be highly attractive to the person that you're pitching. But with that, we're then going to talk a little bit, use illustrations from the upcoming crowdfunding campaign for the Renaissance League. This is a new venture of which I'm a principal and founder, and one in which the goal is to set up a new female rugby sports organization from pro to first grade, all inclusive, and in that regard. And there's a number of reasons why that's good from a fan building standpoint that we'll talk about later. But it's intended to be a demonstration of a building a regenerative financial ecosystem for youth sports to allow more parents to be able to afford to put their kids into sports. And so it's got impact and cause all over the front of it because that's what it's about. And it just happens to be within an economically sustainable business venture. So it is a for-profit business. But we're going to get down to the hard part of crowdfunding, and that's the crowd. So Jerry, talk about the importance of a crowd, having a crowd, how a crowd is critical to success.
Well, yeah, it's baked right into the name, right? Crowdfunding. And so just to expand a little bit more on where these crowds come from, what the law that was, I think, it was originally part of the Obama Jobs Act in 2012. Yes. It came online in 2016. And basically what it assumed was that there's huge chunks of the population that are being left out of really private equity kinds of opportunities. And so the law set it up so that if these kinds of things are done on a FINRA or an SEC approved platform with total transparency, then we can throw open the floodgates to basically anybody, and this is a generalization, but anybody with $100 that wants to invest in your company have the ability to do so. And so what all of that assumes is that you as the company, you as the founder, have actually a crowd that might be interested in doing or in taking an equity stake in your company. And so one of the big fallacies that we first have to kind of address is the fact that the crowd does not come from the platform. So for example, the largest equity crowdfunding largest equity crowdfunding platform out there these days is called WeFunder. And if you were to go there, you would see that they have hundreds, maybe even thousands. I'm not sure. I look at it fairly frequently, but there's a lot of opportunities just for the general public to invest. But in each one of those cases, the crowd does not come from WeFunder, from the platform. It comes from the founder, from the owner, from the person that's trying to launch the company. And so in the case of youth sports, I think the big thing that the big thing that Renaissance League is trying to address is the fact that these sports teams have huge crowds, whether it's sponsors, whether it's family and friends, whether it's the kids themselves. Uh, they've got crowds, but the model has been broken really for a long time in terms of youth sports. And so that's what's exciting about Renaissance League. That's where crowds come from the fans, from the parents, friends, family, sponsors, all of that. So.
Yeah, and this is part of the process of where I say there's total alignment between crowdfunding and what we're trying to do in the Renaissance League. Is to begin with, we start with the concept that the athlete is not the center of the universe. It's the fan. The fan is the person who ultimately pays for everything. They buy a ticket to a game or a match. They buy merchandise, of which they pay sometimes outrageous prices for. And all that money goes to pay for the athletes, the coaches, the back office, the staff, the lights on the stadium. All those things are paid for by fans. And one of the challenges that we've run into when we've talked to people about this is that everybody gets focused on the professional team and they forget about all the other people who started as early as age 6 to start learning a sport, playing a sport, having natural talent, having trained talent, and move up through the ranks until they're good enough to play in competitive sports and ultimately at a professional level. And some would say even the level above that is in like the US Olympics or the national teams, which can draw upon multiple professionals these days to create their teams. So in that though, ordinarily all the focus is on the pro team, and nothing wrong with that from that perspective. But if you really want to have a larger crowd, you would want everybody who has kids in sports from first grade all the way through collegiate levels, and including adult clubs going into playing a lifetime sport. And all these people are potential fans. If you do an analysis, apparently about 60 to 65% of all fans of a sport played that sport at some times in their life. So it seems natural then that you want more people playing the sport. It creates more fans. But then going beyond that is engagement. And this is, you'll see parallels between a crowdfunding campaign and what we're doing in Renaissance Sports, in that we want the fan not to be a passive observer. We want the fan to be doing something with the team. This may be coming to a game, which seems passive, but we're going to give them opportunities to be coaches, referees, volunteers, help with all the amateur sports in the system. We're going to talk about doing different events, fundraisers, and other things. And more importantly, we're going to give them a chance to also be stockholders, meaning that a lot of you may be familiar, the Green Bay Packers essentially sold their stadium to the people in Green Bay. And as a consequence, they all vote. They all make decisions on the stadium and everything that goes forward. They have an interest that is skin in the game in what's going on there. We're going to do the same thing with Renaissance Sports. This is, as we see it, kind of following, again, the democratization of the capital industry by using investment crowdfunding. We want to do the same thing with fans. We want to democratize ownership of buying for the fans. And that will then help drive all the income that's there to come into the team and pay for everything we want to do. So before we jump to our next question, I want to recognize Omar. Omar is on the line with us in this morning audience. Good morning, Omar. It's good to hear from you. Omar does his own shows live online. I've been a guest on one of his shows. He covers a range from doing a background like who are you, where did you come from, to different types of contests. And they're all very entertaining and somewhat a learning exercise. So Omar, thanks for being with us this morning.
Good.
So Jerry, this is, as you pointed out, the platform where you place your basically for sale sign and say, hey, give me money. They are not a broker as we sometimes would expect a broker to be, or a salesperson. Even though they can talk about the offering, they have very rigid limitations upon that. They're not really allowed to promote any individual offering. And the more important thing is they're not bringing hardly any of the investors to the table. I think the stats that I've seen is that maybe 3 to 5% of the investors typically come through a crowdfunding platform, and all the remainder have to be enticed, coaxed, nurtured to come to the platform by the business that's seeking to raise money.
Right.
So how does a business go about doing that?
Right. So you've done a good job of outlining the role of the platform. The platform itself can really do very little in terms of actually promoting your deal, if you will, or your specific raise that you're trying to accomplish. Very little they can do in that space. But what the platform can do, obviously, is to kind of help to coach you through all the steps that it's going to take in order to get your issue, your offering, we'll call it an offering, to go live. And so there are certain financial steps in that. There are certain legal steps in that. In other words, there's a document you have to fill out, file with the SEC called the Form C. That takes a fairly significant amount of energy to get through that process. But there's various kinds of financial reporting requirements, legal requirements. But then it really all just boils down to marketing and how you're going to address your crowd. And so I had a good friend one time tell me that what you really need is a video that makes a grown man cry. And maybe that's true in some cases, but it just comes down to marketing. So you're going to put together a pitch deck, and typically there's going to be a video that's involved in that. And so, really the marketing piece is where, in terms of actually launching your offering, getting exposure for your offering, you're going to want to leverage that through various social media channels. Obviously, I know that we're talking about rugby in terms of Renaissance League, but there's so many spillovers into gymnastics, which is kind of the world that I grew up in. And so I'll just kind of draw on some of my own experience there. I mean, there's tons of families, and I live in the Denver area, and there are clubs all around the city here. And they oftentimes get drawn into magnet events, actually pretty large events that are sponsored, like at the university level. University of Denver here in town, for example, hosts a number of really large events every year that pulls in literally thousands of athletes and families and friends and all of that. And so the crowd is there. The crowd is somewhat organic. It's just how are we going to penetrate that crowd? How are we going to let them know that the fact that you're buying leotards and paying for travel expenses and just monthly fees to the local gym that you're involved in, is there a way? And in my case, it would have been nice to know that there was a way actually make an investment, in that, not just checks out the door, but maybe there's an opportunity to actually get a little bit of a return on that. And so that's, I think, the thing that's attractive and exciting. And again, it all comes down, in most cases, once you've got all the legal stuff done, your documents filed, it all comes down to marketing. How are we going to penetrate this crowd? And so there's much, much more we could say about that, but hopefully that addresses the question that you answered, that you asked, Carl.
Yeah, it's one of the, I would call it, I'm going to try and be politically correct here, but one of the gross errors that I think that most people make in crowdfunding is that they forget, or they did not know, the business person did not know that it was intended and designed to allow Joe and Sally, everybody, to be an investor in their business.
Mm.
But almost all the offerings, this is the deal structure that is put on the table through crowdfunding, are designed for wealthier people. So as an example, Jerry used the term $100. According to the law, you could actually set the minimum investment for a crowdfunding at $1. The problem with that is that the cost of handling that $1 transaction is much higher than $1. And so kind of as a default reality here is most offerings don't go below $100 because they're going to spend so much money handling each and every investor to get them set up, get their account, take the money in, put it in the bank, do all the reporting, pay all the fees associated with it. So you may see an offering from time to time at $50, almost never below 50. 100 tends to be like the average minimum. But too many people come in and they go, oh no, we're going to ask investors for $10,000. Well, by definition, the laws that control crowdfunding set a limit on how much a person can invest that's tied to their income. So if you're making $50,000, you've automatically, they can't afford that kind of they can't participate by law. So then they push the thing down to $100, but the entire deal structure is like aimed at wealthy individuals instead of people who have barely enough money to pay the bills from week to week. And you need to give them something new and different. I'm going to get into that more in a moment. But in building your crowd, your customers may be your largest existing group of people that you can go to and ask them to consider investing in your business. In my mind, crowdfunding is naturally aligned with working with and engaging customers and asking them to become a second relationship, not just a customer, but also to become an investor. And if they become an investor, it changes the relationship so much between you and your customers, because now they do have skin in the game that they can rise to the third level, which is I call an advocate. And this is the trifecta that I try to do when I design crowdfunding campaigns, is I want a customer to get something back as an investor, but because they now have a choice between buying from somebody else or buying from a business in which they're an owner, they're going to choose you. And once they do that, then it makes sense for them to tell all their friends and family, why don't you buy over here because I'm an owner. So we get to that point. So in building a crowd, what's interesting is so many businesses really don't know who their customers are. They know that they sold so many dollars of goods and services this month, but if you ask them, give me a name list of every one of your customers, I want an email address, I want to know, so that we could send out a promotional thing to recruit them to become an investor, they have no such information. And so basically, even though they're selling and they may even be successful in their business, they don't have a crowd. They don't have a mailing list. They don't have a relationship other than the fact that people keep coming in the door, but they don't know who they are or why they're there or how to structure a deal. So we have another person who's come online. This is a new person to me, Milton Milan. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. But thanks for listening in this morning. Happy to have you with us. What is interesting is the Renaissance League, because we're sports, we automatically think about fans, even though I will say most sports organizations assume that fans, they're entitled to fans. They don't actually go out and work to develop the relationship with their fans. But we're going to have a fan club. So we're almost ahead of the game in our thinking, because we intend to have a director of fan engagement. We're going to have activities to get fans on board. We're going to try to figure out how to get the fans to the games, how to get them to buy merchandise. We're treating them as our ultimate customer, and we want a direct relationship with each and every one of them to build this up. And so from a crowdfunding standpoint, we're getting organized in a hyper manner compared to what most businesses have or would do. And I think that's going to give us an advantage here in putting our proposal, our offer out there on the street for these people to consider. So if a business is going to build their own fan base, what would you suggest, Jerry, that they might start doing today as an asset building type of activity where their fans, their customers are their asset that they want to develop? What would you suggest they might consider?
Well, you're going to have to think of this. There's several ways to approach this, but you're going to have to think of this in terms of building a little bit of runway, right? And so I'm just going to assume, I'm going to follow up on the scenario you were just illustrating, Carl, where even if you've got an existing fan base, in our case, or customer base, you may not know who those folks are, and you may have limited access to them. And so you're going to have to start to build a little bit of runway, generate some inertia for your offering that you're ultimately going to try to put out there. So what that means in this world, in today's world, oftentimes it means a strategic use of social media, right? To start to promote through, all the popular platforms that are out there, just an awareness about who we are, what we do, the value that we create, the opportunity, what our goods and services are, what our products are, all that kind of thing. But then over time, as you start to get some fan engagement that way, then that's where you can start to promote that, hey, coming down the pike, 6 months from now or whatever, you're gonna have, if you love us, if you like what we're doing, if you've been a repeat customer, if you think that what we're offering is really something that adds value to community life and all, you have an opportunity to take, just a small stake investment in that. And as you just talked about, Carl, once you're an investor, you do rise to that third level. That now you're an advocate, right? Because you've got skin in the game. But in terms of actually generating the inertia for that, you have to think in terms of leveraging whatever kinds of social media platforms that you already have, and start to push some messaging out that way. Or if you've got newsletters that are going out to your current customer base, you can start to sow the seeds for this kind of an engagement, crowdfunding engagement that way. And if you're just a traditional, maybe brick and mortar, I mean, you can obviously just have things at the counter there that talk about upcoming opportunities, all that kind of thing. So you really have to think strategically about how you're going to do this. I am not a pure marketing person by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some rock star marketers out there, some that specialize actually in Reg CF things, and they can do some amazing things just in terms of how they can start to generate some inertia for you.
Yeah, I think there's a number of very important lessons in that statement. And the first one, there is no switch that you flip and automatically you have these people in your crowd, in your fan base, who are going to step up and invest. It requires a relationship. It requires building those relationships, creating a level of trust over a period of time. And ordinarily, I will talk about that if you have an existing business with lots of customers, you might be still 3 months away from being ready to launch your capital campaign. But if you're brand new, if you're a startup like we are with the Renaissance League, I would be looking more at 6 months. And during that 6 months, I'm not waiting till the last minute to start building my crowd. The first thing I want on my plate is building the crowds today. I want to get people in place. Another thing
Carl,
Yeah.
there are other things, that it's a whole lot more calculus than it is just straight math, right? In terms of sports leagues, they have seasons, right? And so obviously timing could be a huge deal, right? Now, when is the start of the season, and when is it that you're starting to collect the dues for the season and all of that. So that's just one example, probably of many of the factors that weigh in on, timing and when and how and where and all of that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I think we went over 100 factors in our business plan so far. And the good news is we're planning to put on our first set of national tournaments starting in probably May of next year. So we've got that much of a runway, so to speak, before we really need to have money in hand. But we have all these things to set up in advance. So we're looking to launch this campaign as early as October 1st, which seems highly unlikely, but I'm using that as what I call a stake in the ground. I'm going to try to be ready by October 1st, and we probably, in all likelihood, may not launch it till December 1st to January 1st. And that gets, as you say, into a little bit of calculus, because most people don't look at investments during the Christmas holiday season. It's kind of like, oh, my money's going to gifts. And as a result, there's no money that's discretionary set aside for making investments, even small dollar, $100 investments. We're going to try to make a stocking stuffer. I got that almost correct. Maybe ownership in the league and the perks and incentives that go along with that, as something somebody may want to give to their favorite sports fan, particularly if they're a rugby sports fan. We have another comment here from Omar. He's singing high praises of me, but I think he meant to include Jerry. That's okay, Omar. I know you'll get it right the next time. But he says, thanks for the shout out, but good points on businesses. It's very important to know your customers so you can build that relationship. I agree. This is I think, a failing of too many small businesses. We get caught up just trying to survive. We get caught up just trying to get our products on the shelves and all the different many things that go along with that. and yet our customer is truly our greatest asset. If we don't have people behind our products or services, nothing's going to happen. And as much as we may be proud of our products and services, they really may not sell themselves. And even if they could sell themselves, they're almost always in competition with somebody else, whether it's a product with the same features, or it can be delivered tomorrow by Amazon, which is quicker, or some other such thing. So having that relationship with the customer is critically important to your business, and it is even 10 times more important to a crowdfunding campaign. You want to engage your customers from day one. You want to collect information on them. You want to understand their buying preferences. You kind of want to know what they care about. You can make a lot of good guesses as you go along, and ask your customers why they're buying from you, what you can do to make their customer experience better, anything other than cutting prices. But you want to talk to them and get them to know you. And you need to do this over time, so you bring them up to speed. But one of the things, Jerry, that I have found is that back to the average person on the street, the average customer, they may know little or nothing about investment crowdfunding. So how do you get them educated, as we would call it, on what investment crowdfunding is all about, and how would you go about making it easy and simple for them to learn and appreciate?
Right. So part of that comes, a typical pitch deck will include just a very simple, basic understanding of what investment crowdfunding is, right? And so typically you're going to have a slide or two in your deck about how this is different and how this changes the game from maybe, bake sale fundraisers, all those kinds of things, right? And really, in very simple terms, lays out the fact that now you can be, excuse me, an investor and not just, writing checks. So that's also partially the role of the platform. The way that the SEC FINRA set this up was that they want the whole thing to be very transparent. And so basically every deal has to contain some of the exact same certain elements about how deals are structured, what all these terms mean. And so part of that is in disclosures that the platform makes available to the investor. So the investor, for example, goes to the platform and they can see the entire Form C that's been filed. They can see the entire terms and conditions. And then this is also a requirement, is that the investor can ask questions, do a Q&A on the platform, through the platform itself, so that these questions are public, they are reviewable by the public. And so it really is meant to be kind of an interactive experience, so that you as an investor, I've got a question. I mean, for example, common question is, am I ever going to get any money back out of this thing? Or when do I get my money back, right? And so you can just fire off that question in a chat box on the platform, viewable to anybody that actually visits the platform. And then the organization or the founder of the company can respond to that and basically give you, very detailed level on any kind of questions that you have. And so it's an educational experience. I mean, there's no doubt this is still, it's only been live since 2016 and really only active since probably about 2018, 19. So we're only about 5 or 6 years, 7 years into this thing. And so it is still very much a foreign concept to many people out there in terms of, obviously you've got a lot of private equity firms. They understand private equity, but even they don't really understand that, the power of the crowd and the power and just kind of the game changer that this is. And so, it is an educational experience. The way it's set up, like I just mentioned, not to repeat myself, but the platform helps to communicate some of that just to their, chat box and Q&A, that kind of thing. But it's also something that you're going to need to just kind of give a brief. I think the way I look at it, just in your pitch deck, you just kind of want to wet the whistle, make people aware that this thing is out there, that it's different. Please ask more follow-up questions. It's something you could consider.
Yeah. So with my encouragement, Omar wanted to also tell you, Jerry, that you're awesome. So I just wanted to throw that on the screen for you.
All right, Omar, you're a fan. Awesome.
Yeah. My experience has been that I can't get anybody to the platform unless I've already completely sold them on the concept.
Okay.
And so what we're planning to do within the Renaissance League is, when we're going to start a fan club, and it's going to be there to engage a person in all aspects of being a fan. But we're going to create an educational program that's going to basically teach them about investing in crowdfunding and how that works. And we're going to get that posted up on our website. That'll be a free downloadable type of thing that they can watch anytime they want to. And it's intended to educate them on crowdfunding, the company, what they should be looking for before we actually put a deal on the table. So it's not going to fall within the realm of test the waters, which is a mechanism where you can put your proposed deal structure out there and get some feedback. Mm-hmm. I myself have not found that to work for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So educating them, I think, is going to be necessary from day one. We're kind of saying that somewhere down the road, we're going to have an event, and it's going to be this new thing, and you need to learn how to do it before you go. In fact, there's no reason for you to go unless you learn it first. So let's get you all educated on that as much as possible. And then in that, getting them to come to the table. I believe that almost nothing happens in the world without an incentive, attached to something. So a lot of people, and again, this is a common mistake, I think, of small businesses. They think that investing in their company is something that's so magnificent, so wonderful, that people are naturally going to do something. And that, unfortunately, is far from the truth.
Right.
So I like to design my crowdfunding packages where I put something beyond simple return on investment, something that's not interest, that's not revenue, that's not profits, but something that really speaks to them as a customer. And I worked with a campaign last year where we were doing some nutrition bars, and we gave away for $100 investment, we gave them a few dollars of free product. So this is like an immediate payback on the investment. It has a retail value. And then what I like to do is I like to give them discounts off of future purchases, because in my mind, this is the open-ended bank. I can give you, for a $100 investment, I can give you $100 of discounts, or 200, or 500, or 1,000. And as I design a discount, I'm still leaving a profit margin over and above my cost of goods and my cost of operations. But it's a discount to the customer, and they're like, wow. So because I have this special relationship with this company as a customer, they've given me a chance to get an even better deal on product I was going to purchase anyway. And now they start going, I like to see a value assigned to a package. This is a true value, not cryptocurrency. So that's a topic for another day. That value assigned to this, which is 2-3 times the dollar amount of the investment, where it's within the control of the fan, the customer in this case. If they buy more product, they get more value. They get more value, we get more value. Everybody wins from this situation. I'm technically sacrificing certain profits that might have earned anyway if they had bought the product at the full retail price that I was selling, but I'm getting capital in the door today, which gives me the ability to do more. So I'm doing a bit of a trade-off of some future profits I'm giving up on sales in exchange for having enough money today to grow my business up. But I really love, this is where I get creative. I keep trying to think, what other thing can I throw into this package that really sings to the person who's reading the deal or going, that's why I'm here. I'm a consumer, I'm a customer, and you're giving me a super deal on your products and services. And oh, by the way, yes, you're giving me something else. It may be interest on a loan, it may be a share of revenue, it may be future profits, but that's really not what's driving me to make this decision. It's the super deal that I'm getting with regard to the products and services.
Right. And to me, there's a lot of opportunities for that in the whole sports realm. I mean, again, going back to my experience in gymnastics, right? If all this came with a 25% discount on a leotard, so for gymnastics, that's an additional perk. It's a bonus for sure. So.
Yeah, so that's part of what we're working on now. Is part of our goal is we're going to do 2 years of national tournaments with 1 pro level, 4 collegiate levels, and 4 high school levels, where we're going to invite top athletes from across the United States to come to Denver and participate in this basically invitational national tournament. Mm-hmm. And the stadium that we're looking at has 5,000 seats in it. And from some people that go, well, that's not that many if you've watched a football game with 80,000 people. But in the game of rugby, 5,000 sales of seats are good.
Right.
And doing this for every single match within a 5, team round robin tournament, now we're talking lots and lots of seats. I think it's 80 or 90,000 seats altogether we have to sell. And so in a crowdfunding campaign, we have the ability to say, oh, if you put in $100, we're going to give you a free ticket to one of these tournaments.
Right.
And the person's going, well, I put in $100, I still have the chance of getting my $100 plus more back from this deal, but I've got $25 in hand right now for a tournament. So I'm starting to feel better about this every day.
Right.
And we're filling the stadium where, yes, we just gave up $25 in ticket sales, but with any luck, they'll go out and buy $400 of merchandise and concessions and those expensive hamburgers that you get at sports events, and we'll get our money back. Somebody was talking the other day about how they took their kid to a game and a Coke and a hamburger was $25. So a family of four was $100 of just concessions before one of the kids says, oh, I'd like that jersey, which was $100. That can be made for $15, and those kinds of things. But this is how you start thinking through what you're doing in crowdfunding. You says, I've got to create a fan base. I've got to create a crowd. And then if I want to raise money in crowdfunding, I really got to get into the head of one of my customers and ask them, what's going to get you to write $100 check today? And understanding that it may, they don't sit on a bunch of money that's in an account just waiting to be invested in something. This is money that might be, a weekend out, might be this, that, or the other. We're going to ask you to dedicate this money to our crowdfunding campaign, and here's why it's better than all your other choices. So as you start a crowdfunding campaign, you've got to get the word out. You mentioned social media. What other things do you suggest that a business might do to as they're building their fan customer base, all that kind of stuff? But how else can they get the word out? What can they do to get attention?
Yeah, obviously, again, it's a lot more calculus than it is. I mean, but some of the things that we've seen that have really been helpful is typically you open up a crowdfunding campaign and the way it works is that you establish a minimum successful raise and a maximum. You can raise up to $5 million on any one campaign. The average raise, I mean, just so you have the numbers in hand, across all platforms, the average raise is around $350,000 to $400,000 these days on any one offering. Okay, but you'll open up your crowdfunding campaign. It'll run for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, certainly no longer than 6 months. But those early investors can start to generate some real traction for you. So now, for example, someone comes in and they write their $100 check to Renaissance League, for example. Okay. Now they can start to leverage their own social media and say, look, this is a cool idea that's really starting to emerge. Someone's giving some fresh thought to what this whole thing looks like and all of the pain points that we've all experienced in youth sports where it's just money out the door constantly. I heard about this $100 deal, $1,000, whatever, right? Where we're kind of changing the game on the way this whole thing works. And so now it's not just the company through their own assets, their own social media assets talking about it, but now you've got traction with actual investors. And so as this campaign starts to play out, as it starts to run, those early investors now can start to talk about it, through their own social media platforms and start to, rally their own friends and family. So you can start to see how it starts to mushroom that way. And so those early investors, I mean, you encourage them to start talking about it, sharing it, just amongst their own crowd, so to speak, right? And so that's definitely a strategy, a tool that contributes to a lot of success. So that's just one idea.
Yeah, so with that, what we have found is that you want to make it as easy as possible. That's convenience, simplicity, every word we would use there, to create this viral effect
Right.
Where as soon as somebody signs up as an investor, you send them a thank you email for making an investment in your company. And then you send them basically what I call the investor promotional kit.
Right.
And you say, please tell everybody how smart you are, how forward thinking you are, how great you are by investing in this company. And here is a pre-scripted email to send out to your friends. Here's a social media post to put on any of the different platforms that are there. And even giving them a chance to go to a site on your website and make a video testimonial that you can post up about them and put out there. And convenience is critical because everyone who says, well, viral means that it's just going to propagate on its own. Well, no, it needs all the help you can
Yeah,
give it.
intentional.
Yeah, you want to make it so simple that all they have to do is drop a name or a word into something, and boom, it can be sent to everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
And this goes. I mean, you're making the point that we discussed earlier. This goes back to your marketing campaign, right? I mean, those are probably the most strategic dollars that you're going to spend in getting this thing going. And I think a good marketing firm will have that in mind for you. And I'll say, okay, now we're going to create some shareable assets. So you put in your $100, right? Now here's just something, click and post to your Facebook, click and post to your Instagram, whatever, right? And so just those shareable assets, the convenience factor that you're talking about is absolutely vital and really needs to be a part of any marketing campaign for sure.
Well, and this gets to a financial issue, which I've shared with lots of people, is that when you run a regular investment campaign, you have to go through all these different steps of contacting people, making them aware that you're raising funding. You have to make the pitch. You may have to travel, sit down with them. And as you go through the different stages of pitching and converting them into an investment, that all costs money.
Right.
And more importantly, it costs your time because you only have so many hours in the day. Every entrepreneur I know is already at 120% of a rational day workday.
Yeah.
But if you do crowdfunding, you have an opportunity to take the budget that you would have created for raising funding and match it with your marketing money and bring them together. So as you're doing your campaign, yes, you're pitching to your customers, but you're also creating new customers.
Right.
So you can use both budgets and get a two-for-one, a twofer out of this. New customers, new investors, new customers make more investors, and new investors make new customers.
Right.
And it is a marketing thing. It's very basic. This is all about marketing. You can't sell to someone who doesn't know you exist.
Right.
You can't sell to someone who doesn't understand the value proposition. You can't sell to someone who thinks that everybody else will give them a better deal than you. So marketing is all part of this.
One of the things was interesting, and I was able to participate in a few roundtables at various incubators, accelerators, places, just around the region, New Mexico, Colorado, that kind of thing. One of the things that's kind of interesting is that in traditional venture capital, right, you're spending hours and hours and money everywhere just to try and get on somebody's calendar, right? Just to try and get on a VC's calendar, right? And you're going to find out that, they don't fund in the specific area that you're involved in. I mean, the numbers and PitchBook is kind of the Bible used by all VCs. The numbers are pretty stark these days. I mean, less than 2% of any startup is going to get funding through traditional venture capital. One of the things that was always kind of surprising to folks that we talked through kind of this whole crowdfunding approach is that there's a pretty good chance you're never going to meet your investors, right? You're not going to spend hours and hours pitching to one specific investor or one specific group. It's obviously helpful if you do that, if you've got, kind of a big fish that kind of can begin, launch your campaign, right? But for the most part, all this is going to happen through technology and through, the marketing strategies that we were just talking about. So it really is kind of a different way of thinking. Kind of takes some rewiring of the neurons up there to understand how you can take advantage of this.
Yeah, it is lots and lots and lots of contacts with lots and lots and lots of people. So right now on the rough drawing board for the Renaissance League, we're looking at a maximum capital goal within Reg C of $2 million. And at $100 a piece, that's 20,000 potential investors. And on one standpoint, that's great because 20,000 investors will each getting a ticket to a tournament next year. We'll have that stadium full for every match going forward.
Right.
But that means I have to create 20,000 new relationships. I have to manage 20,000 new relationships. And I can't spend a lot of money on any individual relationship unless, as Jerry described it, there's someone that is an influencer, somebody that people are going to follow. They're going to come on board just because that person said so. There are a number of people out there. We're in the process of identifying anyone in youth sports, anyone in the rugby world who has a following on TikTok or Facebook or LinkedIn or something else. And we're going to give them priority on who we do in our marketing campaign. If we can get them on board, then we may pick up their 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 followers, and that improves the chances that we're going to get to our 20,000 threshold.
Right.
So it is all about marketing. It's about a crowd. And for our topic today, as Jerry said, it's embedded in the phrase. You have to have a crowd to get funding. If you don't have a crowd, you can't get funding.
Right.
And it's as simple as that. And
and what you just described, I mean, so now we're talking kind of about a mindset change, and it can sound pretty daunting, right? It's a lot of new stuff to learn, but some of the real encouraging pieces in all of this is that, we have great data on every deal that's ever been launched. There are folks that helped to write the original law and have tracked every deal that's ever been put out there. And so now over tens of thousands of deals, I don't know, maybe I don't know the exact total number of deals that are out there, but have really good data on this. And it's over 70% of deals are successful that launched on a regulation crowdfunding environment. And so there is reason for hope. I mean, it is successful, but it requires just a different way of thinking about things. So, I mean, I just thought that's interesting because I track this data all the time, and just to kind of see how, where it's moving, where the industry, so to speak, is moving. And there's some real encouragement there. So.
Well, yeah, I always kind of laugh because a number of years ago, they came out for entrepreneurs with what they called the lean approach.
Right.
And I was laughing because I go, that's the way it should have been done to start with. It shouldn't be a deviation from the norm. It should have been the norm.
Right.
But we have a lot of people who go out and will tell you all kinds of things about how wonderful you are and how you're going to be rich as an entrepreneur. And they sell a lot of books and other things that don't necessarily pan out the way you would like. But in crowdfunding, developing relationships with your customers should be the norm. Right. And if you have built a large customer base, then crowdfunding is a very natural thing to follow that. It shouldn't be a deviation from the way you do business. It should be the way you do business.
Well, any successful business, you just think about it, because we all experience this, right? You walk into a business where you're just a transaction, right? It's impersonal. I'm just tapping a card, I'm out the door, right? But we all know and we all feel it, just that personal touch, that relational touch. Those are the folks you want to do business with, right? You want to go back. You have, just somehow, just some point of contact with, the owner, the founder, whatever, right? And it just feels good to be there. Feels good to be supporting them. So, yeah, the relational versus the transactional is key in any kind of business, and it's especially key in really running successful crowdfunding campaigns.
Yeah, so for everyone who's watching the show today, either live or on a recording, this is recorded and stored forever, as far as I know, on LinkedIn or YouTube. But we're going to be putting out an educational program for people to understand crowdfunding in the context of the upcoming campaign for the Renaissance League. So I will be posting that. I'll be sharing that link with viewers of this in future episodes. And I also put out almost daily, it was daily, but I've been very busy recently. I'm doing a series on how you go about planning and conducting a investment campaign at different levels and different stages for the Renaissance League in my newsletter, which is on LinkedIn. It's called Instant Funding. You can find it under my name or under the name Instant Funding. And if you really want to go deep, if you want to start learning about raising funding, there'll be more information there for you to view. I'll also put in the link to this educational program that will be coming together soon, so that we can start building our runway and having enough time on our runway to get stuff done. So Omar gave us one last comment before we go. Good program. We'll connect with Jerry and hope to see you in person soon, Carl. Yeah, Omar's coming from wherever he's at in the world today to Denver here next week. So we're planning on doing a podcast with Omar when he's in town. And then we have another person who's come on board, Kevin Hawthorne from Lakeland, Florida. Thanks for being with us this morning, Kevin, and watching this show. So Jerry, we're out of time. Not that we care all that much as a live broadcast, and I can stay on here for days, but most people have other things better to do. Any last thoughts or summation that you'd like to make about crowdfunding before we call it a day on this program?
You know, just at a broad level, this whole thing is kind of industry agnostic. I mean, I've seen it work, and we see it work, and the numbers bear it out. I mean, it works in all kinds of environments, whether it's B2B, B2C, and then just in any really kind of an industry. Obviously, everything's AI these days, and that's getting a lot of attention, but it's really anything from, well, really any industry you're in could potentially be a good way to help raise some startup capital. So, you know, I think it's very flexible, and so I'm encouraged by that. We're definitely encouraged by a lot of the numbers that just continue to grow, and just kind of the maturation of the industry, I think, is probably the best way to describe this. And so it's really, you know, it's taken a number of years for the flywheel to start to turn, but it is starting to turn, and people know a little bit more about it these days. And so, and personally, I'm just thrilled about the application in youth sports, right? I mean, you're in the weeds much farther than I am on this, Carl. But I just think about stadiums full of crowds, and I think about just all of these events, all of that. I mean, the crowds, if they can just be approached in the right way, you've got massive crowds. And so just how we, you know, how we approach this, I just think it can be wildly successful. So that's my
we're very optimistic about the change that we can make, and we're implementing a number of changes within our business model, our conduct of business engagement of fans. And once you do that, it's interesting to see how certain problems just disappear. You know, they're almost like, why did they ever exist? And you're going, well, it's easy. If you have a team of 20 kids who are all 10-year-olds, you have a limited range of what you pay for uniforms because you have no buying power. You've got parents doing all kinds of volunteer work and spending all kinds of time supporting the sport. And both of those limit then how many families can actually participate. We're seeing currently a decrease in youth participation in sports because the cost keeps going up.
Yeah, right.
And so we're going to try to fix that economically, but the economics seem to tie or relate to marketing and interest and everything else that happens. So this is going to be an ongoing topic on this show, the Successful Funding Show. I put this on every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock Denver time, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So you're welcome to come back next week and see our show. We don't have the specific topic lined up, but it will involve funding. I'll give you a clue. So we'll go with that. Thanks, Jerry, for being my guest. Hang on for a minute after we close the show. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.